So our learning target is that you're going to be able to write equations of linear functions using any kind of points, 1 point, 2 points, and slopes. And then later on, you're going to be able to find a line of best fit. So let's just talk about the options that you have for when you go to write a linear equation. So most of you are familiar with the first one, slope intercept form. Which is y equals mx plus b. And we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. But there's a second form, and the second form is actually more universal. As you get into higher level math classes, they don't really use slope-intercept form anymore. And we call that point slope form. It looks longer, but it's much easier to work with. And both of these you're going to use when you're given 1 point and a slope, and you can kind of decide how you want it. And then there's a third option, which we call standard form. And you probably talked a little bit about this in Algebra 1. So these two are when you are given a slope and a point. The standard form is you're going to use when you are not given a slope. And so we're going to kind of dive into all three of those. The first one is the y equals mx plus b. And just remember that m is your slope and that b is your y-intercept. Now most likely they will not give you the y-intercept right off the bat, so you can't just plug in your slope here and your y-intercept there and say, hey, I'm done. It's not going to happen. So instead what you're going to do is you're going to plug in or substitute in your coordinate for x and y and your slope. And then you are going to find your b, your intercept. And then you're going to have to finally then write or rewrite in the form of y equals mx plus b. In point slope form, again, they give you a coordinate, whether it's a coordinate or the y-intercept, doesn't matter. They already gave you the coordinate and the slope. We're going to plug the x1 here, the y1 here, x1 here, m here. And it looks kind of confusing, but let's kind of back it up. What I did is I took the general equation and I wrote it into y minus the y coordinate, because this is a number, it's going to go there, slope, x minus x coordinate. And so what you're going to do is after you plug in your x and y and your m, you are just going to simplify the equation. And when you're done simplifying, it will already be in that form of y equals mx plus b. So let's back up. What do you need in order to write any kind of equation? Well, again, we're going to need a point and a slope. So let's take a look at the first one. It says write the equation in point slope form and then rewrite it in slope intercept form. The slope is 5 and it passes through the point. So they give us the two things we need. So they said start with point slope. So y minus the y coordinate is m, x minus the x coordinate. Alright, so our y minus the y coordinate happens to be 2 right here. Our slope is given over there to us as 5. Don't forget your parentheses. X minus, and now the x coordinate is negative 4. Notice here though that when there's a minus and negative, that goes back to your basic skills. Minus and negative right next to each other becomes plus. So step 1 is done. You plugged in all your coordinate. Now you want to go straight into step 2, and that's just simplify. So if you're going to do your order of operations, let's get rid of our parentheses first. So we're going to distribute here. And then one last thing, we're going to simplify and solve for y. So how do you get rid of minusing 2? You add 2 to both sides. There you go. It's a two-step process there. You plug everything in and then you just simplify. The following one says write the equation in slope-intercept form that passes through the point and is parallel to these two. Now remember, let's back it up. Remember, we need a slope. We don't have a slope. So we can take one step backwards here and let's find the slope. Remember, our slope formula from previous course is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So 6 minus 4, negative 2 minus 2. Our slope is -1/2. Okay. Now, since it's parallel, we're going to use this exact same slope. So now we can start our process. So we're going to do the other form now. Your y-coordinate now from here is -5. What? Your slope is -1/2. Your x-coordinate is -3 plus b. So we have -5 is equal to, now go ahead and multiply these. That will give us 1/2 plus b. We have to solve for b still. So -1/2 minus 1/2. We get -6/2 equals b. But now we still have to write our actual equation. So now it's y equals our m, which is -1/2, x plus b. And it doesn't matter to me if it calls for an equation and you're like, oh, I'm so used to slope-intercept, I want to keep doing that. That's fine. But I want you to realize that you've got usually about 3 or 4 steps to get b. And sometimes students mess up right here. They don't add or subtract this, they divide by it, they just get confused. And then you finally have to go back and write the answer. Point slope form, once you plug everything in, then there's like usually a 2-step process and you're done. You can do whatever you want if it doesn't tell you exactly what to do. In this case, it said do this and then that, so you have to follow directions. But if it's let's say it's a multiple choice question and it just says what's the equation, go with whatever you want. I do want to caution you though, because I saw an ACT problem, or maybe it's an SAT problem, I can't remember now, where all their choices were in this format. It was not simplified. So you do need to be somewhat familiar with point slope form. Alright, how about this one? Some students want to order shirts with their school logo. $9.65 per shirt. Whenever it says per, that's your slope. And a setup fee of $43. A setup fee it's not your slope because it's not happening every time or every unit. That's a one time. So that would be a y-intercept there. You're going to start off with $43. So we're going to go y is equal to mx plus b. So you have to recognize what form it's in. Plus 43, it's $43 to start with no matter what. And then after that, it's going to be $9.65 per shirt. So times however many shirts you want to buy. Now let's talk about writing a system of equations. So when you go to write a system of equations, usually you want to look for any kind of per. And that would mean slope-intercept. Now if they don't give you a per, or I should say if they don't give you 1 per, but instead they give you 2 per items, that usually means standard form. Another clue for standard form is if they give you a total amount, that means standard form. And then once in a while, not very often, but they do some kind of a comparison. And I really can't give you a general equation to follow there because it just depends on the problem. So Macy owns her own landscaping company. She mows commercial and residentials. $40 for, now it doesn't say per or every, but that's what they're implying. $40 for every commercial, $20 for every residential. So notice how they're giving us like 2 pers here, and if you look closely they give you a total. So the topics here is they talk about money, and they're also talking about how many lawns. So let's do the money one. The money one would be $40 for the commercial plus $20 for the residential equals a total of $2,620. So that's all a money amount here. So that's called standard form. You have your both variables on the same side and your total over here. Now see, so if you take the number of commercials plus the number of residentials, that will give us our total. And does it give us our total? Okay, I didn't see a total amount up there, so we're just going to go ahead and write that down. Alright, so in this case we're going to talk about money, and they're talking about tickets. How many tickets? Alright, so money amount. There's $3 for an adult and $1.50 for a student, and the total amount of money is $199.50. use that, this, and this. Now we're going to use the same variable, so X stood for student or adults and Y stood for students. And it says that there was a total of 73 tickets. So total goes over here. So now we're going to go X plus Y. All right, ACE rent-a-car changes to a flat fee. Okay, so notice how this one is not $15 per mile. This is the only one that's your slope. And this is not, so that's your slope-intercept. That's your clue that it's going to be slope-intercept because they don't give you the total here. So it's going to be Y is equal to 24 cents per mile plus a flat fee of 15. All right, Acme charges a flat fee of 30, so that's your one-time fee. Starts off at 30 no matter what. And then they charge 16 cents per mile. So when you go to write your systems, you kind of have to look at, do they give you a total amount? If they give you a total amount, we want to do standard form like these ones. If they don't give you a total amount and they give you one like per item or per whatever, and then a non per one, that's going to be your slope intercept.